All right, hello everybody. Today we're going to be looking at the origin insertion points for some of your head, neck, and trunk muscles. There are not a lot of muscles or origin insertion points that you'll need to know, but some of these spots are a little difficult to see and kind of visualize in your head. So make sure that you either get on visible body and take a look at some of these points from different angles and try and find them yourself, or you get an open lab if you can and take a look at some of these models, and that might help as well. Okay, so this is going to be a quiz style video, like as per usual. So first, we're going to start by just hiding this zygomatic bone right here, just to get a better angle of things, and then we will get started. All right, so for number one, we're going to be looking at a muscle that originates up here on this landmark that I'm kind of drawing in, and then it will insert at this point right here. So again, pause the video, answer it, name the landmarks, the origin points and the insertion points, and then name the muscle as well. All right, so for the origin, we're looking at the temporal lines. And then for the insertion, we are looking at the coronoid process of the mandible. And so the muscle that originates and inserts here is going to be your temporalis muscle. And this muscle kind of comes down like this from the temporal lines and onto that coronoid process of the mandible. So this will be your temporalis. So temp for temporalis. All right, so let me pause the video and we'll get a different angle and do another one. Okay, so for this next one, we're going to be looking at number 2. It is going to originate here on this landmark and then insert right down here. So again, name the landmarks and the muscle, and then we'll come back and answer it. Okay, so for this origination point, this is going to be your zygomatic arch, which is made up of the temporal process of your zygomatic bone and the zygomatic process of your temporal bone. They come together, make the zygomatic arch, and the insertion point is going to be the lateral surface of the ramus and the angle of your mandible. So this kind of surface right here. And the muscle that we're looking at is going to be the masseter. So mass for masseter. And this muscle kind of comes down just like that. And so, as you know, for a lot of these muscles, they are symmetrical on each side of the skull or each side of the body. So there's a masseter on this side, masseter on the other side, and they have the same origin insertion points. So number 2 will be the masseter. All right, we'll pause the video, come back and do another one. Okay, so for these next two, they are going to be a little bit tougher to see. So I'm going to want you to just follow along with me as I kind of find the best angle to look at these. So what we're going to do right now, we're looking at the anterior side of the body. We're going to flip around to kind of a posterior angle, zoom in a little bit here. And then what I'm going to do is isolate 2 bones. So we're going to get more in the back here. We're going to isolate the mandible and the sphenoid. So here we go. We have the mandible and the sphenoid, and we will take a look at our next muscle. All right, so to start with, we're going to be looking at a muscle that originates on this surface right here. And then it is going to insert at this surface right here. And this will be number 3. So again, a little tricky to see, but just make sure you're isolating the right bones, getting the right angle, and it'll be easier to kind of tell what's going on. All right, so for the origin, this one we are looking at the lateral pterygoid plate. So this whole thing right here is the lateral pterygoid plate, but specifically this muscle is going to originate on the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. So this plate obviously has two sides, a medial side and a lateral side. The origin is on the medial side of the lateral pterygoid plate. And then the insertion is going to be on the medial surface of the angle of the mandible right here. So you know your angle of the mandible, and that medial side of the angle is where it's going to insert. And so the muscle we're looking at is the medial pterygoid. So your medial pterygoid muscle. And so this muscle is going to kind of come down like this. So that is your medial pterygoid. So let me pause the video, get another angle, and we'll come back into the next one. Okay, so again, a little bit of a different angle here. Now we're looking at a more anterior view. So before we were kind of looking from the back, now we're around to the front. And so now this one is also a little difficult to see, but we'll do our best to get a good angle of it here. So number 4, the origin is going to be this spot right here. And the insertion is going to be this spot right here. So again, name the landmarks and name the muscle. Okay, so just like we said on number 3 for the medial pterygoid, for this muscle, it's going to originate on the lateral surface this time of the lateral pterygoid plate. So lateral surface of the lateral pterygoid plate. And the insertion is going to be the condylar neck of your mandible. So here's your mandibular condyle, and that has a neck to it. And so right underneath this will be the condylar neck of the mandible. And so this muscle, which is the lateral pterygoid, so number 3 was the medial pterygoid, number 4 will be the lateral pterygoid. This one is going to kind of come under here and go behind the coronoid process of the mandible and kind of continue to connect right on to that condylar neck. So again, this muscle is going to be deep to the mandible here, so it kind of goes behind it, so deep to the mandible, and it is also deep to the masseter. If we remember, the masseter would kind of come down across like this. So it's going to be deep to those two things. All right, so let's get another angle and we'll come back and do another one. Okay, so for this muscle, this one kind of tells you in its name where it originates and inserts. So if you really pay attention to what the name is, you'll be able to understand where it originates and inserts on the body. So first, the origin points are going to be this kind of region right here. And there are two kind of landmarks or bones that you can name for this origin point. And then the insertion is going to be this landmark right up here. So the origin down here, insertion up top. And this will be number 5. All right, so first, the origin point. The clavicle will be an origin point, and the manubrium of the sternum is going to be the other origin. And this kind of area or region right here together kind of make up the origin. And the insertion, this up right up here, is your mastoid process. So that will be the insertion point. And so the muscle we're looking at is the Sterno, Collido, mastoid. And so, as I said before, you can see the two origin points. So the sternum, so the manubrium of the sternum for sterno, Collido for clavicle, and mastoid for the mastoid process. And so this muscle is going to kind of come up and around like this and kind of twist towards the back. And so this muscle is the one that you kind of see if someone were to like flex their neck, or get like if someone's stretching their neck and you see that kind of long muscle that comes from the front and around to the back, that will be your sternocleidomastoid. All right, cool. So again, we'll pause, come back to another one. Okay, so finally for the last muscle that you'll be responsible for knowing the origin insertion points, we will be looking at a kind of three-part muscle that has kind of three regions to it. Let me get it just a little bit of a different angle here. Let me move this over. And so we will be looking at the origin insertion points. So for the origin, each part of this muscle or each region of this muscle kind of has a different point where it is going to originate. But the insertion points are all going to kind of be the same, where all three portions kind of come together at those points. All right, so starting with the first origin, it's going to be this landmark right up here. That will be the first origin. And then the rest of the origin points will kind of start here. And it'll be all of these spots right here. And then for the insertions, first one will be this bone right here. And then this landmark and this landmark as well. And those will be your insertion points. And this will be number 6, I believe. Okay, so yeah, name your landmarks to the best of your ability and what muscle you think it is. All right, so as I said before, this muscle kind of has three parts to it. The muscle we're looking at is the trapezius, and this has upper, middle, and lower fibers. And so the upper fibers, these are going to be the only fibers that kind of act on the neck area, and that makes sense because they are the only fibers that originate at the external occipital protuberance right up here. So these fibers kind of come down like so onto the clavicle here, which is the insertion point, one of the insertion points. The other insertion points will be the spine of your scapula and the acromion process as well. So these fibers kind of come onto the clavicle, onto the spine, onto the acromion, and those will be your upper fibers. And then with your middle fibers, we're going to be looking at the middle and lower fibers. We're going to be looking at these spinous processes right here. So the spinous processes of starting at cervical vertebrae 7 and ending with thoracic vertebrae 12, those are going to be your origin points. So your middle fibers are going to come from here and onto that spine and onto the acromion process. And then the lower fibers will come from way down here all the way up onto the spine as well and that acromion process. So as you can see, what we've done now, what we've drawn, is half of this big diamond-shaped muscle on our back. So as you can see, I'm just drawing the second half here. It's this big diamond-shaped muscle, and this is your trapezius with its upper, middle, and lower fibers. All right, so that will do it. So those are the origin and insertion points for the head, neck, and trunk muscles. Those are the only ones that you'll be responsible for your quizzes and practicals. So make sure you get those down. As I said before, some of them are hard to see, like those pterygoid muscles, kind of difficult to visualize in your head where they are. So make sure you get on here yourself, try and find them yourself, and it'll definitely help. So that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email any of the TAs or professors. Feel free to come and sign up for Open Lab and get your hands on some of the real physical models. It might help you understand where everything is located. And yeah, so good luck. Have a good day.